westbound newsroom in New York, in color, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. And Roger Mudd in Washington, Tony Sargent in Vu Prang, South Vietnam, Don Webster in Quang Ngai Province, South Vietnam, Steve Rowan in Washington, Bruce Morton in Washington, John Lawrence in Chicago, and Tom Ryan in Columbus, Ohio.
Good evening. At least since the United States entered the Vietnamese War, one of the principal advantages for the Allies has been mobility provided by helicopter airlift. The North Vietnamese, in contrast, have been slogging southward on foot. But today there is evidence the communists are beginning to catch up. CBS News has learned that Soviet-built helicopters are being used to transport North Vietnamese troops to staging points on the Cambodian frontier. Richard Threlkeld of our Saigon Bureau said that Allied forces employing nighttime electronic devices have spotted the copters on 3 occasions in the past few months. So far, they have not violated South Vietnamese airspace, and their role has been limited to transport and supply missions. But, as Threlkeld notes, the use of helicopters represents the most ambitious communist effort yet to compete with the modern military equipment available to the Allies. Those communist-based troops in Cambodia are keeping up the pressure on the Special Forces camp at Vu Prang just across the border. The siege has been on 5 weeks now, and the North Vietnamese shelled the camp again today. 2 American defenders were killed. A U.S. spokesman in Saigon says the communists have lost 1,300 men in that siege, mostly as a result of air and artillery strikes. We have a report from Tony Sargent on the scene.
New intelligence reports indicate the enemy will try to destroy Vu Prang before Christmas. Continued shellings like this one that wiped out one of the main storage areas are aimed at softening the camp's fortifications and the will of its defenders to resist. Nearly all of Vu Prang's bunkers have taken at least 1 hit during the campaign. Unofficially, Green Beret defenders admit the enemy is making gains simply by weakening the structures here. They can't withstand the hits the way they used to. Not everyone at Vu Prang can stay underground all the time. Emergency repairs have to be made. The wounded have to be evacuated. Men who carry stretchers out to helicopters risk being carried out themselves because each helicopter arrival can trigger a new round of enemy shelling. If intelligence reports are accurate, the enemy seems willing to cooperate in making this base a test of how well Vietnamization is going so far. What happens on this hilltop will provide a lot of guidance for the high command on both sides about how the war may go next year. South Vietnamese and Cambodian mercenary troops salvage every scrap of usable material. They reinforce small bunkers where they live with their wives and children on whose faces the siege of Vu Prang is written in a telling way. There are no smiles here, no laughter. For several weeks, this child and his parents have lived amid the continual jarring of enemy artillery, rocket, or mortar fire from nearby Cambodia, or from the surrounding forests of South Vietnam.
All of us on the team, our hats are off to the little people, our CIDG. They're fine, beautiful soldier. He's stuck with us. He's still sticking with us. He's down there in his trenches with us. He's guarding us all night long. His family's living right there with him. They know what we're going through, and they're hanging in there with us.
Well, does he have any choice?
Yeah, he has a choice. He can just quit and become a villager or a farmer or something, but I guess in his own way, maybe not freedom as we know it in the United States, but he has his concept of freedom, and that's what he's fighting for, because he knows the NBA and the Viet Cong won't provide him with a free government. He's a Montagnard, a highland man, and basically they're very democratic, and this is what he wants. He wants to be able to farm his own rice fields, to have his kids grow up with somewhat of an education. Before this all started down here, we had a school down in the village where all the kids used to go to, and we had 60 students and 2 teachers. It was a headache at times getting all the supplies for it, but it was worth it. But now, of course, school's out till the incoming stops for a while.
What are the chances of seeing that kind of situation again around here?
I think it's good. I think once we break the enemy's back, we're going to get back to normal or semi-normal status around here. it'll still stay tactically warm for a while, I'm sure. But we'll have school again. We'll have horseplay on the runway again, water fights in the compound, stuff like this. It'll take a while, though.
About all Vu Prang can do is keep its head down. At any moment, the next mortar round might land. Each night may bring a new attack. Tony Sargent, CBS News, Vu Prang.
For the third time in less than 4 months, Viet Cong guerrillas managed to attack the heavily guarded American base at Cam Ranh Bay. This time, the target was an Army combat support unit near the main hospital. The spokesman said several enemy satchel charges exploded, but only 3 Americans were wounded, and damage was light. No enemy casualties were reported in the Americans' defensive mortar barrage. An Associated Press correspondent at the scene reports that a Vietnamese man and woman were killed near My Lai today when they ignored an order by a U.S. Marine to halt for a check of their identification cards and tried to run away. More on My Lai in a moment.
Would you believe I found out I have iron-poor blood?
I know. I'm your iron-poor blood. I'm pale and out of shape.
What can I do?
Take Geritol. Geritol changes iron-poor blood into iron-rich blood.
Geritol iron enters your bloodstream fast, carrying its blood-building iron throughout your body. Just 2 Geritol tablets contain twice the iron in a pound of calf's liver, plus 7 vitamins for nutrition.
Look at me now. Geritol changed me from iron-poor blood to iron-rich blood.
If iron-poor blood is your problem, take Geritol. It carries blood-building iron throughout your body.
Why don't you try Geritol, too?
Did simple nervous tension keep you awake last night? Then take 2 Sominex tablets as directed for 100% safe, natural-like sleep.
Take Sominex tonight and sleep safe and restful sleep, sleep.
Take Sominex tonight and sleep.
Defense Secretary Laird was asked by reporters today about the impact of the alleged My Lai massacre, and he said he does not think it will damage the Nixon administration's Vietnam policies. He did acknowledge a possible setback for the United States in the propaganda field, though. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee announced it is sending 2 investigators to South Vietnam to look into the general military and political situation there. And Chairman William Fulbright indicated they may check into the alleged My Lai massacre. Fulbright said they will report back to the committee before it opens new hearings on Vietnam in January. A number of South Vietnamese legislators had planned to make an on-the-scene investigation of My Lai today in defiance of President Thieu. But American forces in the area apparently didn't get the word. As the legislators and some newsmen accompanying them were heading toward the hamlet, U.S. artillerymen were firing salvos at a suspected enemy position nearby. Several of the shells fell within 700 yards of the group, and the effort to reach My Lai was postponed. In Washington, the United States Court of Military Appeals received a petition to prohibit news media from reporting further accounts of the My Lai case, and it was filed by both the prosecution and defense in the forthcoming general court-martial of Lieutenant William Calley, Jr. The court took the request under advisement. Indications are that Calley's trial may not begin until March. Among others under investigation in the case is Captain Ernest Medina, Calley's company commander in Vietnam. Attorney F. Lee Bailey is representing Medina, and Tom Ryan of WBNS-TV, Columbus, Ohio, asked Bailey if he thought the captain would be charged as a result of Calley's trial.
Oh, I don't know. It's possible. It seems to me that we're getting trapped into a Nuremberg situation where one officer is invited to say his superior told him to do something, and therefore he's forgiven. I don't know which way it might go, but I don't like the way it's going at all, and I know that Medina doesn't.
Have you been in communication with the President or anyone at the White House with regard to pre-trial publicity?
I have sent a night letter to the President asking for a conference with some of his staff in order to head off the publicity which seems to be steamrolling in one area. I think the whole thing is getting out of hand, and I think the potential damage is huge. It certainly isn't fair to Medina to get all these reports and have them published and tell him to remain silent. That's what's been done.
Do you blame an incident like this, if it took place as alleged, on the country itself as opposed to the individual or his commanding officer?
Well, from all that I can find out, including Medina's own experience, Calley was no murderer. He wasn't a man that would go around shooting women and children. I think it's a bad war. It's being fought under terrible circumstances. The morale of the troops is always low. And I think that there's a very low regard for life in all of Vietnam, and I'm sure that rubs off. But I do not concede that anybody was slaughtered the way the news reports so far have indicated. None of those witnesses have been cross-examined, and I should certainly like to do so.
The company chiefly involved in the original My Lai story still operates in the area near the hamlet, although the GIs who make it up are new. Don Webster visited that unit.
Charlie Company, 1st of the 20th, 11th Infantry Brigade, Americal Division. After 20 months, they are now 11 miles south of My Lai. All of the personnel who were present at the massacre have long since rotated out of Vietnam. If it weren't for the legacy it bears, Charlie Company might be just another unit. Despite the fact the personnel have changed, Charlie Company will always bear the black mark of My Lai. The fact it was their unit is inescapable.
Has there been much talk among the men of Charlie Company about the atrocity 20 months ago?
No, it's more or less just a number. It was a completely different unit. All the men that were in Charlie Company then are gone, and this is just a complete new unit. It's just a number to us.
Does it concern many of the people in Charlie Company that it was this unit that participated in that alleged atrocity?
No, I would not say it would. Because I feel that what the old Charlie Company did shouldn't reflect on us as a new Charlie Company. Because most of the men here are new, including myself.
And we're out here now, and we're not doing anything like this. And I don't know, from what's been going on, the people back in the world probably think it was we're doing the same thing, which we're not. We're out here more or less to help the people. And I mean, we're not going around massacring them or torturing them or anything like that. Just not our mission out here.
It's hard to relate, but I know it wouldn't happen again. But I was kind of dumbfounded by it, you know, because like I can't see killing anybody that, you know, needlessly over here. Enough people are dying as it is.
Today, the men of Charlie Company seem pretty typical. They do their job and follow orders. The orders do not include the mass slaughter of innocent civilians. Don Webster, CBS News in Quang Ngai Province, South Vietnam.
The My Lai story is all but certain to be brought up at a news conference being held by President Nixon next Monday.
What a good time for a kid.
Anytime, anywhere the fun is, you light up a Kent and good taste happens.
What a good time for a Kent.
Just waiting around to hear from my camera. Oops, there she goes. There's a picture for you. You know how I knew that picture was finished? By the electronic beep that you just heard. This is one of the countdown cameras from Polaroid, and these cameras are so automatic, they even call you when your picture's ready. Make a nice Christmas present.
A federal grand jury in Washington today accused former Senator Daniel Brewster of accepting $24,500 in bribes for his vote on postage rate legislation. Along with the Maryland Democrat, the indictment accused the Chicago-based mail-order firm Spiegel and the firm's Washington lobbyist, Cyrus Anderson. Brewster, who lost his seat last year, could be sent to prison for 62 years and fined $90,000 if convicted on all counts. Defense Secretary Laird says that the Pentagon's 34 major weapons programs have exceeded their estimated cost by $16.2 billion. And he adds, in congressional testimony made public tonight, he expects that overrun to grow. In dollars, the F-111 swing-wing jet bomber, long a controversial item, ran up the largest excessive cost, almost $4.5 billion. But in percentage overestimate, a new torpedo led the list by 395% up. Laird attributed part of the overruns to inflation and changes ordered by the military rather than to poor estimates. Senator Fulbright today urged Congress to cut back the $28 million in the Pentagon budget for public relations. He coupled this with sharp criticism of administration news policies. He charged that through such actions as Vice President Agnew's attacks, the administration is trying to control news media. And through the Pentagon public relations setup, the administration is trying to generate and promote support for military weapons and programs. Here is an excerpt.
I don't think it's their job to propagandize the American people. I don't think it's their job to sell political programs abroad and to justify these from the political point of view. It is to explain their particular function. I think there is a discernible distinction between information and propaganda, and I think they've clearly transgressed that distinction. And this is a practice which I think is unacceptable in a democracy, to have your own government going around subsidizing with taxpayers' money propaganda to influence the attitude of their own taxpayers. It's perfectly legitimate for them to inform the people about their own activities, but you'll see in the speeches that are given, and especially by ranking generals, they're all designed to convince the American people that our war in Vietnam is fully justified, and if not almost a holy war.
About 200 civilians and military officers work in public affairs on the civilian side of the Pentagon. They act as middlemen, taking questions from reporters, getting the answers from the military, and screening them to make sure they're in accord with Pentagon policy. There also are daily news releases, film releases, and a morning briefing. But all this represents only about 15% of the $28 million public relations effort, most of which is conducted by the services.
This money is not being spent to promote and sell particular programs. It is being spent to provide accurate and timely information of non-classified nature to the American public.
Is there any element of propaganda to what you do?
What I would have to leave that to you, Steve, as a newsman covering the Pentagon, to make that assessment. But fundamentally, essentially, my task is to provide information, both good and bad, to the public.
The Senate today voted to cut the controversial oil depletion allowance to 23%, rejecting both attempts to cut it deeper and to leave it at its present 27.5%. The issue is a key point in the tax reform bill. Bruce Morton reports.
Everyone agreed the oil depletion allowance meant more than oil, that it had become a symbol of the fight for tax reform. Louisiana's Alan Ellender told an almost empty chamber that oil was the victim of a misdirected holy war between liberals and conservatives. John Williams, no fiscal liberal, retorted, if we're going to get any reform at all, this is the place to start. William Proxmire called it the most notorious loophole. In the end, the Senate voted to cut the allowance some, from the present 27.5% down to 23%. It rejected a move to go further, down to 20%. Proxmire was pleased, but could have been more pleased. Ellender sad, but could have been sadder.
Well, it's very good news that the oil depletion allowance has been cut. There isn't any question in my mind the American people would not accept this bill as a tax reform bill unless it contained a reduction in the oil depletion allowance. This is the most notorious loophole in the tax law. However, it simply is not enough. We cannot justify a 23% oil depletion allowance. 20% is much more like it. I'd prefer 15%. But I think you can see the unfairness of the present system when you recognize that whereas the general manufacturing company pays effective taxes of about 43%, the taxes on the oil industry are less than 8% on their net income. Now, this is just plain inequitable and unfair.
You said on the floor that oil depletion was in trouble, not as an issue itself, but because it had become a symbol. Is that why you lost, do you think?
I think so, without question. As a matter of fact, I came up the elevator with the senator, and that was what he said, that the matter hadn't been studied, but if he were to go back to state, why, they'd throw bricks at him. So, in my book, it's just shameful that the decision by the Senate was not made on merit instead of on this pretext that the oil company is a symbol of loopholes and a symbol of tax dodging, when depletion doesn't mean that at all.
The different Senate and House cuts will be worked out later in conference. The next big Senate fight starts tomorrow over increasing individual income tax exemptions, and a modest increase is given a good chance of passing. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
In New Orleans, the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued an order today for a two-step integration of 16 school districts in Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Texas. The districts must have all students integrated by the start of the 1970 fall term. Clement Hainsworth, the rejected Supreme Court nominee, today returned to his seat as Chief Judge as the U.S. Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals began a new session. But he did not answer the question about whether he would keep that seat, saying he expects to talk about his future with President Nixon next Thursday. However, United Press International quotes informed sources as saying Hainsworth plans to continue as an appellate judge. Senator Carl Munt, the South Dakota Republican, now serving his fourth term, has suffered a stroke which has affected his ability to speak and walk. A spokesman described his condition today as serious, but not in danger, and anticipated that he will be hospitalized for 6 to 8 weeks. Munt is 69.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the answer.
What's the question?
The answer to the question, is there a new and better way to get fast relief from cold symptoms?
What's the answer?
The answer is...
That's the answer, Alka-Seltzer?
Oh, you probably think this is Alka-Seltzer, but it isn't.
Well, what is it, club soda?
No, it's a brand new cold tablet in a brand new form. Inside this glass is a decongestant for stuffy sinuses, an antihistamine for runny noses, aspirin for headache and that rotten feverish feeling, and a lemony flavor to give it a good taste.
What makes all the bubbles?
If you're wondering why it fizzes, that's the effervescence we put in, so it's all dissolved and ready to go to work on your cold as soon as you swallow it.
Well, what do you call this miracle concoction?
We call this new cold tablet Alka-Seltzer Plus because that's what it is. Alka-Seltzer plus all the ingredients you need for really fast relief of head cold symptoms. Nothing works faster.
Boy, are you going to get sued by Alka-Seltzer?
No, Alka-Seltzer makes Alka-Seltzer Plus cold tablets.
Hey, was this the real commercial?
Yeah, you dummy, you.
The draft reverts to a lottery system tonight for the first time since early in World War II. Before the evening's over, some 850,000 young men should have an idea of their chances of induction next year. Roger Mudd reports from the scene.
It's got a new name, Random Selection Sequence, a brand new $140 glass bowl and specially designed plastic capsules, but it's still a lottery by any other name or bowl. And tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, the United States begins its first draft lottery since 1942. Here at Selective Service Headquarters, just a block west of the White House, the bowl is in place, the capsules are under lock and key in this black box, and the television blue boards are ready to take the first numbers. It will work like this. Into the bowl go 366 capsules, each containing a day of the year plus leap year's February 29th. When the first capsule is drawn, the number is pulled out, and the date inside is posted in top position, 001. That means that all men between 19 and 26 born on that day will get that number, and in January, local draft boards will pick those men before they can pick men with 002. The new lottery system does not change the deferment practice now being followed, but it does give a 19-year-old a limit of 1 year as to his vulnerability and his waiting time. When President Nixon signed the lottery bill last week, he quoted General U.S. Grant, who said, "The agony of waiting is worse than the effect of the law itself." Roger Mudd, CBS News at Selective Service Headquarters in Washington.
CBS will carry a live report on the draft lottery over most of these stations at 9 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. After last week's mild technical rally, the averages slumped today on the New York Stock Exchange. Volume 10 million shares. The New York Index off 29 cents. The American Exchange Index lost 23 cents.
The other day I found this tile from the new floor we laid. It seemed different. That floor had yellowed. So I took off the old wax and used clear. It doesn't yellow. And you know, that floor looked like new again.
Clear. It never yellows.
Lemon pledge, very pretty. Put the shine down, lemon good. Lemon pledge as you're dusting brings new luster to the wood. Lemon pledge clean so easy. Lemon way to make wood glow. Lemon
like brand new Lemon Pledge, the fresh, clean way to get the beauty of waxing with none of the work. As you dust, new from Johnson Wax.
Los Angeles police today named a man and 2 women as suspects in the murders of actress Sharon Tate and 4 of her companions last August. 2 of the 3, Charles D. Watson and Patricia Kernwinkle, are in custody. Police said that a 3rd, Linda Louise Kasabian, is at large. Police also accused them of being involved in the murders of a Los Angeles couple the day after the Tate slayings. They identified the suspects as members of a nomadic hippie desert commune and said they did not know their victims. A high-ranking police officer testified today at the Chicago Convention violence trial, and he conceded that his men were uncontrolled for a time. John Lawrence reports.
The officer in charge of 10,000 Chicago police at last year's Democratic National Convention testified today that he could not control his men and was hurt by the sight of them beating people. Deputy Superintendent James Rochford, a 23-year veteran of the force and second in command, came under cross-examination in the 10th week of the conspiracy trial. Defense attorney William Kunstler questioned Rochford about the violent confrontation between police and demonstrators in the streets outside the Conrad Hilton Hotel on the night of August 28th. 5,000 demonstrators were blocking traffic, Rochford said, so he ordered his men to clear them out. The potential of that mob was great, he said. Kunstler, is it not true that during the 12 to 15 minutes the melee was going on that you lost control of police officers? Rochford, that is not true. Kunstler reminded the deputy superintendent of his direct testimony last week, saying he had to get control of his officers later on. Rochford, the fighting went on for 12 to 15 minutes, and at that time I was able to regain control of the group of officers. There were several minutes when I did not have full responsiveness to my direction by all police officers. Is it not true that during the several minutes of this melee that you were not shocked at what Chicago police officers were doing to civilians in the streets of Chicago? I was hurt. You were hurt? Oh, absolutely. John Lawrence, CBS News, Chicago.
Also in Chicago today, Mark Rudd and 28 other members of the militant Weatherman faction of the Students for a Democratic Society were indicted for riotous demonstrations last October. The range of charges includes perjury, aggravated battery, arson, and mob action. The Cook County grand jury recommended a bond of $50,000 for Rudd, a 21-year-old former Columbia University student from Maplewood, New Jersey. And that's the way it is, Monday, December 1st, 1969. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.